Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going deep into Angkor.
Ooh, fun.
Yeah, the ancient Khmer city, in Cambodia.
Of course.
But we're not just looking at the temples, though. Those are amazing.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking at the water systems.
Fascinating stuff.
And our guide for this deep dive is Richard Engelhardt. And his research, 2,000 years of engineering genius on the Angkor Plain.
It's a classic.
Yeah, it's a great read. And so just to set this aside, we're basically trying to figure out how this city in a pretty tough climate.
Oh, yeah.
They've got monsoons and droughts.
It's a challenge.
How they not only survived, but thrived for centuries.
Yeah, the Khmer civilization, they were around from like the 9th to the 15th centuries in Southeast Asia.
Right.
And they were masters of water management.
Right.
I mean, what's really amazing is that their innovations, they weren't just impressive back then.
Right.
They're like super relevant for us now as we're facing climate change and, trying to live more sustainable.
Totally. So, okay, let's start with the basics. Paint me a picture. What was it like to actually be in Angkor?
Okay, so imagine.
I'm picturing like a bustling city, rice paddies everywhere, and these huge temples reaching for the sky.
Yeah, you got it. And you can't forget the Great Lake, the Tonle Sap.
Oh, right.
Angkor was right on it. And this lake, it's massive, but the thing is, it changes so much with the monsoon seasons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so the Khmer people, they had the incredible resource, but they also had to deal with these crazy monsoons and then the floods and then the dry periods. So they had to be like incredibly smart about managing water.
So it wasn't just enough to be near this huge lake. They had to like engineer their way to success.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about it this way. They built this whole network of barrays, these giant man-made reservoirs, canals and moats all working together to like manage the water. And some of these barrays were enormous, like 5 miles long.
Really?
Over a mile wide.
That's insane, especially back then.
Yeah, it's crazy when you think about the engineering involved.
So how did all this stuff actually work together? Like, is there a way we can picture this whole water network?
Let's take a look at figure 8 in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you see the east and west barrays, right?
Mm-hmm.
These giant reservoirs on either side of the city.
Okay.
They were connected by canals, which then fed into the Siem Reap River that flows south into the Tonle Sap. And then all these canals, they branched out like veins,
Yeah.
Irrigating all the rice paddies around the city.
So this system, it wasn't just about keeping the city alive. It was about feeding a whole population.
Yeah, it was supporting their agriculture, too.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's what's so brilliant about it. It was like a 2-for-1. They irrigated the farmland to feed everyone, and they had a constant water supply for this big urban center. We're talking hundreds of thousands of people.
Wow. So they had to plan ahead.
Oh, yeah, big time. Incredible foresight.
What I find really interesting is this theory that they chose Angkor as their capital because of this water system. Like, they moved from another city, Hariharalaya, just to take advantage of it.
It's an interesting idea for sure. The exact reasons they moved around 900 AD are still debated by historians,
I see.
but it makes sense. Angkor's location, plus their ability to, totally control the water on this massive scale.
Right.
It gave them power, over their environment and their resources.
Yeah.
Very few civilizations could do that back then.
It must have seemed almost magical to them.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Let's talk about those berets for a second, though.
Yeah, they seem key to the whole thing.
Yeah, the West Beret, especially the biggest one, it was basically a giant battery.
A battery.
Yeah, it captured all the monsoon rain and stored it for the dry season.
Okay, I'm with you.
So it's this constant controlled flow that kept the city and the crops going.
Wow, okay, giant battery. I get it. What about the moats around the temples, though?
Oh, yeah.
They always seemed purely decorative to me.
They're beautiful, but they were way more than just decoration. Yeah, look at figure 11. They're strategically placed within the whole water network. They helped regulate the water flow, prevent flooding, and they even helped distribute water to different parts of the city.
So every detail had a purpose.
Totally. The Khmers were incredibly efficient.
But even with all this amazing engineering, there must have been challenges, right? Like, no system is perfect forever.
You're right about that. Even the best systems face problems. And that's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
Because we know this amazing city, this pinnacle of engineering, eventually declined.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder, what could have led to the downfall of such a sophisticated system? Well, one big issue was that over time, those canals and barrays, they started to silt up.
Oh.
Yeah, sediment built up and clogged everything. Like when you don't clean your house for years, it gets pretty unlivable.
Yeah.
So they needed constant dredging and maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
which must have been a ton of work.
So it wasn't a set it and forget it kind of thing?
Nope. They had to be constantly taking care of it. It makes you think about how much work that must have been.
Right, like did they have enough people to keep up with it all?
Yeah, the scale of this project is what's so crazy.
I mean, it makes you wonder about how their society worked.
Totally.
Yeah.
Like, how do they organize all that labor? That's one thing Engelhardt doesn't really get into.
Yeah, it's like a missing piece of the puzzle.
Mm.
We see the amazing stuff they built, but we don't always see the people behind it.
Exactly. You know, all the collaboration and ingenuity and maybe even the struggles they faced.
Well, it's all part of the story.
And we can't forget about politics and climate change, too.
Right.
Those probably played a role in Angkor's decline. Even today, those things can mess up the best systems.
Yeah. It's a good reminder that even the most impressive civilizations are vulnerable.
For sure.
Okay, before we get too deep into the decline, I want to go back to those moated villages you mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
The ones upstream from Angkor in the Siem Reap River Valley.
Right.
So it seems like the Khmer were pros at water management even before Angkor.
Yeah, exactly. These villages, they're older than Angkor, and they have these really cool systems of moats and canals.
Wow.
Yeah. Take a look at Figure 14. It's an aerial view of one of the villages.
Okay.
You can see the moats around the houses and how they're all connected. It's like Angkor, but mini and way older.
Wow.
So the Khmer clearly understood water management long before those big berets.
So Angkor wasn't just something totally new. They were building on a foundation of knowledge.
Exactly. And that makes their accomplishments even more impressive.
Totally. It wasn't just a few smart people who knew this stuff. It seems like it was part of their culture.
Yeah, you see it in the moated villages.
Yeah.
Water management wasn't just for the elite. It was for everyone.
It's cool.
And, you know, it wasn't just about survival either. Control over water meant control over resources, and that meant control over people.
It's all connected.
Yeah, it was key to their success.
Okay, so we've learned a lot about this ancient system, but why should we care today? Like, what makes this relevant to us now?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah.
And you know what's really cool is that there's still so much we don't know.
Really?
Yeah, the Siem Reap River Basin, it's full of undiscovered history.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like look at the archaeological values map in Figure 15.
Yeah.
It shows all these areas where they could do more digs.
So we could learn even more about the Khmer and their ingenuity.
Exactly. Yeah. We're not just admiring the past. We might uncover knowledge that can actually help us today.
That would be amazing.
Like, think about it. The way the Khmer engineered their landscape, the way they adapted to their environment,
right.
Those are valuable lessons for us.
Yeah.
Especially now with climate change and growing populations.
It's like their problems are our problems.
Yeah. They had to figure out how to manage monsoon rains and droughts and how to feed a lot of people.
We're dealing with those same things today.
Exactly.
Okay, I see the connection. So how can we actually use what they learned? Can you give me some examples of what worked for them or even what didn't?
Well, their decline is a good place to start.
Oh, okay.
Because while their water system probably contributed to it, wasn't the only reason.
Okay.
It was a combination of things. The climate change, they had political problems, and maybe they just couldn't keep up with that massive system.
It's like they couldn't keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a good lesson for us. It's not enough to just build something amazing. We have to keep it working.
So sustainability is about the long game.
Exactly. Like, think about our cities today. We have complex water systems and power grids and transportation networks.
Right.
But are we really doing enough to make sure they'll last? Are we adapting to change?
Wow. Angkor is a cautionary tale.
It is.
Yeah.
It shows that even the most advanced civilizations can be fragile.
So it's not just about copying what they did, it's about understanding why things went wrong.
Yeah, we can learn from their successes, but their failures are important too.
Right. By understanding their challenges, we can try to avoid making the same mistakes.
Exactly. We can use that knowledge to build better systems for the future.
It's about learning from the past to create a better future.
Totally. And remember, we're still learning new things all the time.
Yeah.
The more we discover about the Khmer and their water management, the more we'll understand their achievements.
So it's an ongoing process?
Yeah, it's exciting. What are your biggest takeaways so far? What's sticking with you?
Honestly, it's just the scale of it all.
Yeah.
I knew the berets were big, but when you add in all the canals and the moats and the moated villages, and they did all this without modern technology.
It's mind-blowing.
It is. It's kind of humbling, to be honest.
I know what you mean. It really makes you appreciate how clever and determined they were.
Right. They didn't just live in their environment. They shaped it.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder of what humans can do when we work with nature.
It's inspiring. It gives me hope.
Me too.
But it also makes me wonder about other things. Like, we've talked about the brays for water management, but you mentioned they also had symbolic meaning.
Oh, yeah.
Can we talk about that a bit more?
Definitely. Remember how I said that water was super important in their worldview?
Huh?
Well, the berets weren't just practical. They were like these symbolic representations of the primordial sea. It's tied to their Hindu beliefs.
Wow. So it's not just engineering, it's their whole belief system.
Exactly. It adds another layer of meaning to what they did.
It shows that engineering isn't just about technical stuff. It's always part of a bigger cultural and historical context.
Right. It's never just about the facts.
I'm really starting to see how studying Angkor goes way beyond just looking at the past.
Yeah,
It's about understanding a totally different way of thinking, a different way of being in the world.
totally. And those insights can help us make better choices today.
Hmm.
It is, and we've been talking so much about how impressive this engineering was,
Yeah,
but Engelhardt doesn't actually say how they built those massive berets.
right. Like, what was the process?
Yeah, how do they physically do it?
It's mind-blowing to think about moving that much earth without, modern machines.
I know, it must have taken so many people.
And so much coordination.
Yeah, Engelhardt kind of hints at the scale of the labor involved,
Yeah.
but he doesn't give us the details.
Right. It makes you realize that the genius wasn't just in the design.
Totally. It was in actually getting it done.
Yeah. I'm picturing like thousands of workers, maybe even elephants moving earth and stone,
Oh, yeah.
and someone overseeing it all who understands engineering and water and everything.
It makes our construction projects look easy.
I know. And it makes you think about how their society was organized.
Right. To pull off
Yeah.
something this big, you'd need a really structured system.
Yeah, they had to manage a huge labor force.
The logistics must have been crazy.
It's like we're putting together a puzzle,
Totally.
not just of the physical stuff, but of their whole society.
Yeah.
Their beliefs, their social structures, their relationship with nature. It's all connected.
It is.
Yeah.
And that's what makes this so fascinating. We're not just looking at ruins.
Right.
We're trying to understand a civilization.
And their water system is just one piece of that puzzle.
Exactly. But it's a piece that clearly shapes their whole culture.
Yeah, you said the berets were like symbols of the primordial sea.
Mm-hmm.
So what other parts of their lives were influenced by this connection to water?
That's a great question. And it's something that researchers are still trying to figure out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but we can see clues in their art, their religion, even their city planning.
Okay.
Water wasn't just practical for the care.
Yeah.
It was like a core part of how they saw the world.
So Angkor isn't just a lesson in engineering. It's a lesson in how a civilization's values can shape its environment.
And how the environment can shape its values.
It makes you think about our own society and the choices we're making.
It does. What kind of legacy are we leaving behind?
That's a big question.
Yeah. And, even the most brilliant civilizations, they face challenges and they don't last forever.
Right. Angkor thrived for a long time, but eventually things fell apart.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this question.
Okay.
Can we learn from Angkor's successes and its failures to build a better future for ourselves? Can we create systems that are not only innovative, but also resilient and adaptable?
That's a great question. It makes me think about that idea of interconnectedness we talked about. It's not just about technology. It's about understanding our place in the world and making choices that respect that.
Well said. And who knows, maybe somewhere in those ruins in the Siem Reap River Basin, there are more answers waiting for us.
More lessons from Angkor.
Exactly.
I love that thought. This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've gone from ancient engineering to the future of our own civilization.
It's all connected.
It is. And I hope our listeners are feeling inspired to learn more.
Me too. Angkor's story shows us that the past isn't really gone.
Yeah.
It's still here to teach us and inspire us and challenge us to build a better future.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.